Hi everyone, my name is Dhruv and it's a pleasure to be here. I head AI and data platforms at Medi. Medi is India's largest healthcare benefits administrator. We work with thousands of corporates. We work with a lot of retail products. We work with the government as well on a lot of mass health schemes. And we also work in the international segment, right? So it's a very, very wide variety of gamut that we work in, right? And wide variety of use cases, running at scale as we speak. The session today is about how data platforms and how AI is sort of modernizing or is enabling the modernization of how health insurance sort of runs and is scaled, right? And when I talk about data platforms and AI, we are not just talking about digitization of data, right? We are actually talking about systems moving from a reactive phase to a more proactive and a more preventive phase, right? So these are some of the things that I'll sort of cover in today's session, right? First of all, what are the market forces that are leading this change, right? There are quite a few things happening, when we look at changing consumer expectations, right? I mean, right in the digital first world today, where things are hyper local, where things happen in minutes, right? How are all these behaviors changing the way health insurance is delivered, right? We'll also talk about some of the future trends, right? What are the key technologies in data and AI which are sort of helping in running health insurance at scale, not just in India, but some of the key trends globally as well, right? We'll also talk through some of the design principles, right? I'm sure in the sessions just before mine and in the morning as well, a lot was covered on the design principles in a scalable data platform. But we'll delve a little more into what are the nuances and specifics when it comes to health insurance, right? I have a slide where I show a reference architecture, right? Of course, for each insurance company, things may change depending on the kind of products they work in, the kind of markets, the way different departments are structured inside the company. But I think this will be a useful guide for us to sort of look at how things are designed, right? And lastly, we'll also talk on change management, right? While all of this is nice and cool, end of the day, I think all of us face challenge when it comes to implementation in our respective organizations, right? Considering that we all have legacy systems running, modernization has a cost, tech debt is always there, right? What are the key things that we could do so that we could also meet business outcomes, but think about the future as well? So, these are some of the key market forces that are changing the way, health insurance is sort of delivered. First of all, the digital-first consumer expectations, right? In a world today where, a lot of industries are digital-first, even consumers in health insurance are expecting fast eligibility decisions. They are looking at fast claim settlements, right? They are looking at instant appointments. They are looking at zero waiting times. When they are discharged from the hospitals, they are saying, hey, I don't want to wait for 3-4 hours when I'm sort of discharged from the hospital, right? So there are multiple change in expectations that are driving this, and thankfully a lot of digital-first industries are helping in accelerating this change. Secondly, the data that we talk about in health is actually multidimensional. I mean, if you look at all the V's of big data, right? Volume, variety, veracity, velocity, and all of that is present in health data, right? We have a lot of voice data, right? Patient and doctors are talking. A lot of that is voice data. You have people who are calling up call centers, right? It could be hospitals, it could be insurance companies, it could be wellness centers, and so on, right? There's a lot of voice data there. Similarly, we've got a lot of image data as well, right? There is image data, from a lot of diagnosis instruments. There is image data from ICUs. There is image data from radiology, right? A lot of places, image data is getting generated, right? Of course, the structured data is in abundance, right? So how do we design our platforms so that all the different kinds of data could be stored, could be retrieved, and could be available at scale, right? And when we talk of the data being available, the use cases could be multiple, right? It could be for a AI engineering team or a machine learning engineering team to build predictive systems, right? To build chatbots, to build multiple other things. It could be for a business intelligence team to build dashboards, to build insights, and so on, right? So how do we build these lakehouse sort of architectures, right? So that every different consumer doesn't have to look at a different data set, but they could all look at a standard lakehouse architecture to start with. Thirdly, globally as well as if we look at in India as well, there is also a shift towards value-based care, right? And I'm not sure how many of us are aware of what value-based care is, but typically, historically, care delivery, or let's say when you meet a doctor, right, it's generally based on fee per visit, right? Whenever you get a treatment done, whenever you visit a doctor for consultation, it's about, okay, there is a particular amount that you have to pay. That is typically known as the fee per service model. Value-based implies, hey, there is a fixed fee that will be paid out, right? And the provider or the hospital or the doctor should deliver outcomes, right? And when we move to that model, what happens is that the diagnosis tests, right? The treatment, the post-hospitalization rehabilitation or the post-hospitalization aspects are taken care of very, very well, right? Because then the provider or the hospital is actually incentivized to deliver care with a very, very high quality, right? And this is very useful for the insurers as well as for the providers and for the patients. For all the three, this model works very well. Of course, in different parts of the world, this is sort of accelerating at different pace, right? In India also, we've had recent discussions in multiple forums around that. If you look at some of the future trends, right, what are people expecting, right? So can I just get a raise of hands on how many of us have ever raised a health insurance claim? Okay. So generally what happens is depending on the kind of claim that you've raised. I mean, if it's a cashless, it's easy, but if it's a reimbursement case, it takes several days, right? There is to and fro of documents and so on, right? So one of the key expectations is, can I get instant settlement, or can I get very, very fast settlement, right? That is one of the key expectations that are actually being driven by the regulator, and also, in turn, being expected by the members or the beneficiaries as well, right? Faster settlement times. The other expectation, which is sort of a sad reality, is also on the rampant rise of fraud, waste, and abuse in the industry, right? I'm sure, some way or the other, we've all experienced some sort of fraud, waste, right? And the expectation of the health insurers, because the problem with fraud, waste, and abuse is health insurers also face financial stress, right? Because if you're paying for claims which are not really genuine, right? Those are fake, fabricated claims. There is a financial stress on you, right? So health insurers are also expecting that, hey, I should be able to detect as many frauds as possible, right? Because more the frauds, more the problem is, right? The more time also they would take for adjudication. If they have trust, they would also be able to adjudicate and settle claims faster. And last and not the least, I mean, which is on the prevention and the wellness programs, right? I'm sure anybody who has visited a hospital or even in your organizations, companies keep organizing wellness programs, right? And the purpose of those is, how do you really prevent yourself from being sick, rather than being reactive, reaching a hospital and then getting a treatment done, right? But it's not sufficient to just keep organizing, just keep organizing vanilla wellness programs. Today, what has happened is even wellness programs have become really, really targeted, employers or companies are also organizing wellness programs depending on the kind of diseases or issues that they are seeing in their employees, right? So this is again getting very, very data driven. So, moving on from some of the future trends that are shaping the industry, let's now move to, how these future trends and these, the data and tech, how are these being designed, right? What are the key principles basis which data engineers, data architects, and so on are designing them, right? First of all, I think everybody has heard 100 times today, cloud-based and scalable, right? I won't spend more time on that, but I think being flexible, being reliable, ensuring that our systems don't slow down is so important, right? And today, most of the data platforms are also powering a lot of AI engines, right? And the number of AI engines that are using this is also increasing day by day. So hence, it becomes extremely important to run that. Interoperability, right? I think this is something I'll actually spend a minute on because it's very, very specific and important for health insurance, right? If you look at, if you ever visit a hospital, right, you would realize that every hospital has a different standard of billing, right? They may use different names, they may have different structures, the kind of formats that they have, the kind of names that they use in the bills, they're all very different, right? If you visit a pharmacy, if you visit a lab, right, to get any tests done, even there, right, what would you would see is, if you take the reports from lab 1 and if you take the report from lab 2, you would actually see a lot of difference for the same test in the way things are done, in the way things are written, the way they present everything. The challenge with all of that is interoperability becomes a problem, right? So if somebody has to actually review those documents, if they have to actually assess a claim, it becomes hard, right? Hence, globally, as well as in India, there is a lot of push for standardization, right? How can all the stakeholders communicate in a very, very standard, interoperable format, right? Can the data flowing from a hospital to each insurer be in a very, very standard format? If that happens, a lot of problems get solved automatically, right? Whether it's about faster adjudication, whether it's about reduction of costs, right? The amount of time it takes for adjudicating a claim. A lot of those problems, have a potential to be solved. And interoperability is sort of a very, very important area. Even the government of India has been, they have gotten a lot of standards, especially fire and stuff, so that, they could actually run this at scale. Again, I think another aspect I'll talk about is on data governance and quality, right? Because of the different types of data that is observed across the ecosystem, ensuring that data quality is of high standards is again very, very essential, right? Most of the companies, most of the leading companies today, they have implemented standard data quality frameworks, right? Wherein, every day or every hour, every month, they are looking at consistency, they are looking at validity, they are looking at completeness, they are looking at duplicates and so on, right? Having these checks, I mean, it's not very exciting, but it is something that makes your data so robust and reliable that people who use it actually have trust on the data that they are using it. There are multiple open source frameworks for this, there are multiple commercial frameworks for this, right? But this becomes extremely important in a very fragmented data ecosystem. Customer-centric design, again, is supremely important. In many industries, people have been talking about customer first, consumer first, and so on, right? Whether it's e-commerce, retail, and so many others, right? In health, right, we've seen a lot of focus, a lot of attention now being given to patient first, right? How can we make the experience of patients better? How can we make their appointments easier? How can we make their discharge experience easier? How can we make their claim settlement experience easier, right? A lot of focus across the ecosystem is on consumer-centric designs. Observability and FinOps, of course, I think we've all heard of it. But again, I think this has to be as part of design, right? FinOps, right, which is ensuring that We measure the cost of each and every transaction. We measure the cost of each and every API call. We measure the cost of each and every user, each and every product, right? Each and every component of the cloud platform that we are using, right? Whether it's streaming, whether it's storage, whether it's data warehousing, whether it's an AI platform that's running. It's very, very important to have FinOps built in by design and not an afterthought. Here is just a reference framework. If you look at this, right, in a typical insurance organization, you could have data coming in from multiple places, right? You would have claims data, you would have data from products, right? I mean, if you go to any online portal, you would see hundreds of products across dozens of insurance companies, right? So every insurance company has to maintain their product catalog. It's about underwriting, right? It's about reducing fraud, right? So all of the data from, which the underwriting team uses and, enters, all of that has to be there. Similarly, sales and distribution is again a very, very key component in every insurance framework, right? I'm sure, there are different ways of today buying insurance. It could be digital but enabled by a human, right? It could be human, I mean, our age-old uncles who were selling us insurance, right? So there are different ways of selling insurance. So all of this data actually has to move into a central enterprise data platform, right? Today, most of the people talk about lake houses, so that our BI teams and our AI teams don't really have to look at two different sources of truth, right? Of course, we also have places where those are still segregated, right? The data warehouse and the data lake still sort of don't talk to each other. But lakehouse is the way to go. Another emerging trend is on data meshes, right? Where everything is sort of decentralized, right? The sales and distribution team run their own system. The underwriting team is sort of the data product owner of their own system. Of course, it depends on the maturity of the organization, the maturity of different teams who are using and maintaining those data sets, right? Data quality tech stack I spoke about, so this has to be a part and parcel of the data platform itself. For orchestration, modeling, data pipelines, the typical ELTs, ETLs, and so on, I think everybody in this group is aware. Access control and data privacy, this again, just like any regulated industry, data privacy is so very important for every health insurance data platform, right? Ensuring that all the protected health information, the so-called PHI information, right, is encrypted, masked, and follows the standards it is supposed to follow, right? The standards could be basis what the regulator has laid down. It could be basis the contracts you have with your stakeholders, right? But things like, attribute-based access control or role-based access controls, those are things which also have to be built in as a part of design and not an afterthought. The user groups in a typical there's a cat here. In a typical health insurance setup could be, again, multiple. One could be, the claims processing team, right? There is a CRM team. There are these insurance agents who are working. There are fraud and investigation teams, right? So many a times, every claim that comes in, it's evaluated whether, it has sort of a fraud propensity or not, right? So they are AI engines working in the background that helps in figuring that out. So that is another user of this data platform, the fraud and investigation team. Similarly, the leadership might require the key business KPIs, right, and their weekly business reviews or monthly business reviews. The underwriting team, who is actually writing products, right, who's actually creating products, who's innovating, also needs all of this data, right? And I'll sort of spend a few seconds on this. I'm sure people who've seen insurance products evolve 20 years back, 10 years back, and today. There has been a lot of innovation in the way even the products are there, right? So for example, today you also have products which give you OPD or let's say non-hospitalization benefits. A few years back that wasn't the case, right? But today that is the case. There are many plans today which also give you, sort of annual health checkups and stuff like that, right? Those things were not there in the past, right? So similarly, health insurers or people who underwrite products, they are also getting more and more innovative to meet the demands of the consumers or the buyers of health insurance, right? On the right-hand side, we have the typical list of data technologies which are leveraged, right? I think for the sake of time, I'll skip that. I'll move to the next one. So I think at the data ingestion layer, there are multiple layers that happen, right? We have, every platform today has a real-time streaming integration, because one, the data internally in the organization could be real-time streaming, plus we also have platform today which are ingesting data from wearables, right? And that data many a times is real-time streaming, right? The typical batch, CDC, IoT, validation, I think I'll skip all of that. One important thing is on the golden records, right? And which is about the patient and provider 360-degree view, right? Today, many of us, if we look at it, we will have, if I were to ask somebody, where is all your health data, right? Can I just get a raise of hands on somebody who could say all my health data is in a single place? It's hard, right? Because you might have changed locations in the past, you might have visited different doctors, you might have visited clinics, labs, and so on, right? It's very hard to have all your health data in a single place. Of course, there are multiple apps today, there are many initiatives that have happened today, but having a 360-degree view about yourself, right? Where all your claims are there, all your prescriptions are there, all your lab reports are there, right? This is so very important, right? So many of the data platforms today aspire to have a centralized view for each and every consumer or beneficiary that they have, looking at their health history, right? Both longitudinal as well as sort of cross-sectional. The same thing happens for hospitals as well, right? Just imagine a hospital 360-degree view, right? Could a data platform or a health insurance platform know everything about the hospital? How many beds they have, what treatments they have, what doctors are working in that hospital, how many treatments they have done, what has been the success of those treatments, and so on, right? So that is about the golden records. One another very specific thing on health insurance data is on ontologies. And when I say ontologies, it's about standardizing or nomenclature for diagnosis and treatments, right? So ICD-11 and SNOMED-CT, these are two very classical frameworks, right? And they also keep innovating. ICD is for standardization of diagnosis, right? So for example, it could be a cataract, it could be maternity, it could be cesarean, it could be a normal delivery, it could be a knee replacement, hip replacement, and so on, right? So there are hundreds and maybe more and thousands of such diagnoses that could happen. Similarly, there are hundreds and thousands of treatments as well, right? For the same diagnosis, depending on the person, the treatments could also vary. So typically, data platforms have, for every ailment, for every claim, they have standardized names basis these benchmarks on the diagnosis and the treatments that were rendered for that particular claim, right? Only then, only when you standardize it, can you say, hey, you know what? For this claim, according to the policy terms and conditions, I should actually pay so much, right? We can't let it be vague, right? It has to be standardized basis an internationally agreed framework. Reliability standards, data governance and quality. So in a nutshell, I think to sort of summarize, there are multiple market forces that are shaping health insurance as we speak. AI and data platforms are enabling and empowering, in the successful fulfillment of what the market is expecting, right? So these are the expectations of everybody in this room and everybody outside. Whether it's about providing things real time, it's about hyper-personalization of products that you could use, whether it's about hyper-personalization of, it's about instant appointments or very definitive appointments, or it's about quick discharges from hospitals, or it's about fast and quick settlement of your claims, right? There are multiple market forces leading this change, and I think with the data and AI platforms that exist today, a lot of it is being achieved, right? There's a lot to do in this space. I think it's a very exciting space, very vibrant space. The regulator in India is also forcing a lot, right? They are also influencing a lot of acceleration, not just, let's say, in the typical corporate and the retail space, but a lot in the government, mass health space as well, right? With that, I'll take a pause. Happy to take any question. I hope the last 15 minutes were helpful in getting some information about how health insurance data platforms are designed.